Okay, it is 6:30. I move to open the Marshfield Conservation Commission for Wednesday, March 20th, 2024. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I would like first to welcome our newest member, Sam Malafront is attending his first meeting. Thank you for volunteering to serve.
Yep.
We appreciate that, the town appreciates that. Okay, we have two sets of minutes, December 20th, 23, and February 7th, 24.
Craig. Sorry, that's a mistake. The minutes should be 2/21/2024.
Oh, I'm sorry, 221, yep. So December 20th, 2023, and February 21st, 2024. Does anybody have any changes or edits that have not already been sent to Mike or Liz?
No.
Okay. Then I move to approve both sets of minutes, the February 21st as edited. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Our first order of business is Mr. Roderick, 20 Wrexham Road. Do you mind taking a seat? So, you have issues with your retaining wall. Would you like to explain?
Yes, little by little, I've been taking a deck down facing the east. And I've got to put something back there. You know, the water goes around the back of the house. It actually goes down the basement stairs and floods it. So I'm trying to divert it. But I have other pictures to show you the size of that original deck. And what I'm trying to do is I brought cobblestones that I bought a while back. And I wanted to build the face of it just out of all cobblestones, and then just fill it. It's a retaining wall, not a seawall. I mean, and I'd like to show you some pictures why.
Sure.
Excuse me.
No, that's, we'll pass it along.
That's a clear day. You see, it's coming right over the wall.
Yep.
But I'm trying to. That's going up underneath that deck now, so I'd like to prevent that. The last time I extended the wall, I think Warren Harrington was here.
Okay, that was a while ago.
And, I put on a little 300 feet of additional wall, and he called it a retaining wall, and I didn't have to go through.
Is this the existing wall
Yes.
in front of the house now?
Excuse me if I
Sure.
wanted to do it for a while. But if you notice how big that was, so what I was trying to do was you'll need access, just bring it over here. I want to cut it back also. I want it doesn't have to be that big. So that's where I'd like to put it. But, you have a elevation certificate.
But you want to maintain a deck there.
If I could.
So I'm not clear what you want to do about the wall.
I was gonna destroy concrete wall, but face it with the cobblestones, with the parent instead of concrete. Yeah. That's what I would think. That is important.
I think we have an idea here. Did everybody see these? Okay,
Okay, I have plenty more on that phone to show you how severe that is. That's not the worst.
oh, I can believe that,
See
that,
the weather though, how clear it was?
yeah, that was a beautiful day with a high tide.
So,
Okay.
so reading the building commissioner's comments, you just wanna repair the existing wall and put some drains through it?
Yes, the wall itself. Interior. And what I was thinking about doing is pouring the wall to release something. You know what I mean? Just something like a 4-inch PVC.
Right, to let the water back out.
But that also with buffer zones, so that continue to
It's just town hall, I
No,
believe,
I think,
has their,
I think we're good. I mean, I have been there and I have seen the site and I think, Bert has certainly, you know what we're talking about.
More or less.
Okay, why don't you take a seat so that we can pick you up on the microphone for the, recording. Have you discussed this with an engineer?
All my engineering's done by Merrill. I haven't designed anything, I just gonna replace what's with less depth to it, so you can walk out on something.
Right,
But no, it would be, actually the cobblestones are, like I said, they're gonna face it so that, you know, it will not so harsh on seeing concrete in front of you. So, I don't know what else you'd need, but I'd be glad to supply it.
well, the building commissioner is here. Do you have anything you'd like to add, Andrew, or any ideas? I don't.
Yeah, we spoke in the office about getting a floodplain permit and it's, proposing all the work, but I know he wanted to just kind of chat with you guys first and find out what you thought the level of permitting would be.
I am not in a flood zone, believe it or not. My foundation height is like 24 feet above sea level,
Interesting.
but I'm in a high velocity zone.
Yeah.
So that's, and I have all that here.
So you want to make some changes to the wall and rebuild the deck?
Yeah, I guess what I'm saying is, when I say changes to the wall, it was just something we had discussed about releasing some of that before it gets to the house. I mean, what'll happen eventually, obviously, it'll get clogged up, and that's why I was thinking about cobblestones in front of the inlet, so nothing small. But basically, that's what I'd like to do.
Putting cobblestones behind the wall would be a fill,
Right.
so that would require,
This is in the front of the wall. This is
on
the
your
facade.
side of the wall.
So when you say the front, the water side or the house
water
side?
side.
The water
Water
side,
side.
okay.
So visually, you won't see the backside.
Yeah.
It's, you know,
Okay.
it'll be part of the deck area that we're gonna create.
But nevertheless, that's filling. In, what is this coastal dune?
We'd have to, I would have to check that.
I don't know where.
One second.
I'm trying to picture what this is.
Right down in Wrexham.
Yeah.
It's like the last house before you get to
The parking
the
lot.
old, the old Wrexham,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
where they're doing the beach
Mhm.
nourishment.
Yep.
It's like the north side of Fieldston.
Andrew.
So what we discussed in my office is I think he showed you the pictures of the waves.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
So the water comes over and throws that cobble over the
the wall.
right? But once that water comes over, because I think you could see it just kind of ponds there, it has no place to go and nowhere to release.
Right, and there's
So-
kind of a ditch behind the
Right.
wall now.
So I said step one should be getting some weep holes into
Mhm.
that wall so that the water can then release back out.
Yep.
Right? And I think he's not when he's talking about cobbles, what he's talking about is what you see in the picture there,
Those,
right?
okay.
This is all stuff that's separate from the cobbles that just get tossed over the
Okay,
outside, okay?
those are just the natural beach
Yeah,
stones.
so he's got a deck right up there, and what
Mm-hmm.
he wants to do is he wants to rebuild the deck, but build it smaller than what it is and step it back. And right in front of the deck, what he wants to do is build kind of like a landscaping wall out of these cobbles, so that it gives him a little bit of extra protection for if the water does come over and it doesn't seep out the weep holes.
Right,
least
it
has
will
a
at
little
least-
bit of somewhere to
a
deflect it
stop.
a certain way on his property.
Okay,
That's really what he's looking for.
thank you.
Thank you.
So, Mike, what
Yes.
would your thoughts be on permitting?
So I believe that installing, this isn't directly in the closely in the property borders, the unit over there, but I believe this amount of fill and the possibility of channelizing water with the landscaping wall would require some sort of conservation permitting.
So, I think we can work with you. Has Merrill drawn anything for you regarding this?
No, that's something I didn't want.
Right, you didn't wanna
spend
do
money
if you
on
didn't
until I
have to.
spoke with you.
Yeah.
Do you mind if I?
Nope.
This is what was happening, this is what I need to, put the details in. Now there's the, northeast corner, see how much it washes out?
Yeah.
And also, when I backfilled for this deck area, I have concrete blocks all over the property that I've used for
Yeah.
bodies over the, I would be using most of those.
Most of those.
So there wouldn't be really a lot of fill, just to grade it off, but most of it I can get rid of the concrete blocks or something also.
Right.
So it would be helping the wall too. So as far as fill, I don't expect to go
Well, when I say fill, it doesn't necessarily mean,
Yeah.
any material that is not natural to the space by regulations is defined as fill. No, I think we're good.
It's held up pretty good for the town to work on their wall, and I eventually corrected it because
Yeah,
I had to check my engineers, and that's what they said. What has happened is, you can't see it there, but it would be the, southwest corner, and that water comes around into the basement. I have a cellar window on the southern side and the western side windows, and what it's done, there's a crack now from, the foundation is cracked from one window to the other window, that little corner, cracks in both windows. And at some point, I'm gonna have to do something with that, so I don't use this right now. Prevent that water from reduce the,
okay.
appreciate it.
And, the deck is not a problem, but the wall, I don't know if that could be done with an RDA? Or-
Excuse me, some really cosmetic, I just don't know.
Yeah, no, I understand,
Yeah,
but,
that's superficial.
yeah, but you're still,
But I think, it's a previously permitted revetment, but I think, it needs an engineered plan to show what it proposes to do.
I think so. So, Mr. Roderick, this will need a permit. And we're gonna need an engineered drawing.
Okay.
So if you get back to Merrill, tell them what they're gonna do. And
What
then
I'd like to do.
what you'd like to do. And then, when we have a plan to work from, and you can work with Mike and Liz in the office to determine what the proper permit will be?
I may have to file a letter of intent.
Yes, I'm
Even if-
afraid so.
I just don't wanna have any issues with the town, I just don't wanna try.
Oh, no, I understand that, and that's why we wanna, steer you in the right direction so that,
There for 52 years, so I know the tides and I know what happens. The wall originally returned from the ocean about 85 feet. Now one side goes back about 300 feet, and that would be the north side. And it actually is like a seawall for the whole Wrexham Road area.
right,
Otherwise it would, but
right,
and I've tried to maintain it. I was going to do some major work to it, but there was a group who thought that they owned the dunes to the left of me, that issue. So when I went before, they said, well, it was like 2 inches or less than that on the footing for it. So they made a big stink out of it or whatever. So I just withdrew from it, but they didn't even own the land. So yeah, I know.
Well, I'm sure we can work through this, but we are gonna need to see a plan.
That's not an issue.
Okay.
I would assume that. It's just that I
Yeah.
don't plan unless I don't want to turn any more money away.
Yeah, no, I understand, but get us a plan and we'll
All right, so I'll be
condition it and
All right.
Yep.
I'm all set with the building inspector. Thank you very much for your input. Mike, also. Am I all
okay,
set?
Yep.
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Have a good evening. Okay. 1187 Ferry Street. Who is here for 1187 Ferry?
I am.
Is Mr. Antonick on?
Is he the developer?
He is.
Yes.
He does not seem to be on. So, could I start by asking for your comments, Andrew, because I know you and Mike and Liz and everyone have trying to find the best way
Yeah, the
forward.
best kind of solution down there. So, thanks for having me. Andrew Stewart, I'm the building commissioner and the floodplain administrator for the town. And yes, I met with Liz and Mike the other day because this area of of Ferry Street basically floods from the South River. It comes over and is basically finding the lowest area on that street, which happens to be at this point 1187 Ferry Street. And so the water gets channelized into that property, and the flow of water kind of creates really fast water moving through there, and it's causing a bunch of erosion right at the corner of those properties, 1185 and 1187. You could see a lot of exposed gravels and cobble, almost up to the street, to the asphalt at this point, and right around the telephone pole as well. So what's happening is, basically we've had 6 houses in the last 5 or 6 years that have been knocked down and rebuilt in this area. So we have a lot of improvements, and a lot of those have been open foundations. We only have one that's just elevated completely on fill. So the majority of them are allowing for water to flow through them. They all have pervious surfaces that have been added to them. The high side of all of the elevations is actually on the riverside, those backyards, and then it flows down across the street and then down back through those backyards. And so what's happening is, because the next house after 1187 actually has a retaining wall there, what's happening is all that water's getting diverted right into that one property, and that's why all that channelization and really fast water and erosion is happening right there, and not so much of a ponding, sheet flow is what you're really are normally experiencing in that kind of a flood zone. So one of my thoughts, one of the best ways to curb that, the velocity of the water going across that area, you're not going to change the volume, obviously, the volume's going to be the volume, but the change the velocity of how fast the water goes across there is actually to allow fill to be added to that property, and to evenly distribute it across the whole front of that property at the height of the street, so that they can bring it back, get the coverage that they need on the septic system, get the required area that we need underneath the house, cover up the old excavation, fill in the cesspool, and then naturally kind of grade it off according to a lot of the guidance that we have in the building code, in some of the engineering documents, the FEMA guidance, on to how we can get that, what type of soils, what type of civil engineering really he's going to need to show us to say that what fill he puts there, you know, to even out that slope and kind of slow the waters as they travel across that property. They're still going to all travel across that property and all the others and get in that back, you know, but they're just not going to get channelized through that one property and kind of and have that fast volume and that erosion happening in that one low area. So that's kind of my recommendation, and then for them to use, you know, obvious impervious surfaces similar to what all the other houses have done over there as far as the clamshells and other types of surfaces that, you know, I know they've done some landscaping and other things. And I know some of those properties have done landscaping that they weren't supposed to, and it's unresolved as well. So it's, you know, it's difficult. There's a lot of stuff that's happened down there. So I think the way to mitigate it for the entire neighborhood, at least in this instance, is to allow a certain amount of fill to kind of even that out, to allow for a better flow across there, so it's not as fast water, it's not as channelized, that kind of stuff. And I'm happy to share. I've got all sorts of stuff I can share with Mike. I offer to share any of this information that I have with the commission. So you can
Thank
look at
you. I'm going to take, I know some of the residents are here, and I'm going to take questions from them.
Well, I mean, my
Wait.
husband's on.
Would you state your name and
I'm sorry,
address?
I've never been to a meeting before, so.
That's okay.
Stephanie Carberry, 1190 Ferry Street, so we're across the
I
street.
know Rick is on too.
on two,
Yes.
so. I mean, what I'm seeing or what we're seeing is the fill just keeps getting filled in, and it's going up higher and higher, so I don't know how that's gonna help us out.
Do we have other,
No, unfortunately, the gal that lives directly next door to this property could not.
okay. So, yes,
We have an online Zoom participant who'd like to speak, Rachel Watsky.
absolutely. Go ahead.
Good evening, thank you. My name is Rachel Watsky. I'm from Watsky Law out of Dedham, Massachusetts. I'm speaking on behalf of the Carberrys at 1190 Ferry Street and on behalf of Kathleen Monahan at 1185. The Carberrys, as Ms. Carberry had said, they are directly across the street from 1187, and Ms. Monahan is a direct abutter to, I guess, looking this to the south of 1187. They contacted us because they were concerned about the work that's being proposed here. Having reviewed the sketch plan, the lot grading plan that has been submitted, I'm genuinely concerned about this. I don't feel that it complies with the Wetland Protection Act or its regulations. It is certainly not a minor change under the existing order of conditions that could be approved without an amendment to the order of conditions or a filed a new notice of intent. I understand the prior speaker, Andrew Stewart. I appreciate his comments about trying to slow the channelization of the flow, but there's, in some areas, 2+ feet proposed to increase the elevation on this site, and that's a substantial amount of fill that your regulations and the new regulations coming from DEP are discouraging fill within land subject to coastal storm flowage, especially in this significant amount. I also note that this site plan only shows the buffer zone from salt marsh. It does not show the riverfront area. My understanding is that the 200-foot riverfront area actually extends to the rear of this property. So the entirety of the proposed house and the significant amount of this grading is within riverfront area, and it has not been reviewed, or if it's approved under this is without any need for an amended order of conditions or review as a new notice of intent. That's approving a significant amount of fill within riverfront area, and it's going to cause channelization and concentration of that rapid flow and that floodwaters onto the abutting properties. So it's not necessarily going to slow it, it's just going to block it and push it over to another property. And increase the same amount of volume, but as Mr. Stewart said, it's being conveyed onto, it would be conveyed onto another property rather than freely flowing over this property with 2 feet of additional fill on there. At the very least, a flow path analysis should be performed by an engineer on this property to determine and confirm that the proposed fill is not going to cause this channelization and the damage to the adjacent buildings. I assume you don't need me to go into detail about your local bylaw and regulations about the specifics of it, but we do feel that this would cause a significant adverse effect and cumulative adverse effect on the abutting properties. At the very least, the fill should not be permitted beyond what was initially approved in the prior order or the current order of conditions. I would even suggest that there be a cease and desist or enforcement order that requires the fill that beyond what was approved be removed from the site until, and no further work on the construction of the house be permitted until that fill is removed. This is going to cause an erosion and sedimentation control hazard to the abutting properties. It's going to decrease the ability of this area to protect against storm damage prevention of the abutting properties and to serve for riverfront and then subject to coastal storm flowage to be able to serve to protect that interest. I'm happy to answer additional questions, but thank you for your time.
Thank you. Could you please state again the engineering analysis you recommended?
Sure. Under what's currently happening with DEP and coastal CZM, they are requiring what's called a flow path analysis to be performed for properties or when work is proposed in areas of flood zone or velocity zones. It basically requires an engineer to analyze where the water is currently going and where the water would be redirected when the grading is put in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So at this point, he is in violation of our orders of conditions, correct?
I do see there's another question from Rick Carberry. Rick, do you have a question?
Do you have a question, Rick? You are muted. You are muted.
I have a comment, just some additional information.
Go ahead.
Okay, Rick Carberry, 1190 Ferry Street, across from 1187. Two comments. First of all, this high velocity flooding that occurs from the riverfront under 1184 across the street, and that takes the crushed stones and the clamshells out of the driveways of my neighbors and drives them into the marsh. That velocity also goes under 1187 currently, which is the wettest lot over there. And the reason that has occurred is because the property at 1180, which is the largest raise and rebuild in the neighborhood, kind of got away with raising their elevation by 2 feet. So instead of the water that used to go over the 1180 property, it now channels under 1184 next to me, and then hammers 1185, 1184, and 1187. So for Mr. Stewart to suggest that a 2 feet fill addition on 1187 is going to even out the flow makes no sense if that elevation is coming up 2 feet beyond what the rest of the neighbors are at. So, I mean, I'm no engineering flow path expert either, but it just seems to me to be common sense. And I would think that, any project in a sensitive AE10 zone like this, where that is prone to coastal storm flowage and flooding, when there's additional projects and development that goes on, then an assessment should be done, maybe as part of the flood permitting process, since everybody's required to pay for an elevation certificate, that they look at and analyze any potential adverse effects on the neighbors when projects like this are undertaken.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you.
Well, he is in violation of the original orders of conditions, correct? With the fill that has come in thus far?
He was with the fill that was beyond the 25 feet and the cutting of that tree there. That was why we put the stop work order on the site. He was approved to put in the piles, install the tight tank, and grade it to the approved elevation of 7.3 on their original site plan. The elevations, I will say, on the original site plan made by the former owner Gorodetsky, leave something to be desired. There's no grade contours on that plan, so it is leave something to be desired, let's say.
Anybody want to comment?
I'll start.
You want to start first?
Number one, I think this should be an amended order of conditions. We need to take a look at the plan. Andrew, if you could clarify what you were suggesting, the plan that Oak Construction has presented, that more or less pitches everything to the south corner, both front to back and side to side.
Yeah,
You're saying, correct me if I'm wrong, you're saying pitch it all towards the back evenly.
correct.
So
Yeah, I actually don't like their plan. You know,
okay, well,
I think that it should go right from the street. It shouldn't go up at all. There should be no obstructions of the flow. You know, you just want to even the flow so there's less velocity across the path, and that is allowed. And there are ways to do that properly. It just requires engineering, and it's allowed under all of our statutes. And I'm not saying add 2 feet of fill. I'm not saying add an obstruction or anything like that. It may require a substantial amount of fill, the correct amount of fill, engineered correctly, but directed even with the other neighbors so that it doesn't. Because right now the other neighbors' lots are higher, and the water's pouring down into this lot from those other properties. So you even that out as it goes across all those properties and flows off into the natural drainage areas. So, you know,
Andrew, the other properties are lower, they're 5.5 under Kathleen's house, and the top of the tank is 7.3,
It's
it's not lower.
What's your facts?
So I've reviewed all of the elevation certificates for all of the neighbors in the house. I've reviewed the proposed site plans, the as-built for all of the properties, including 1190. You know, which is in a different datum. It's in the NGVD. It's not in the current 1988 NGVD datum. So it's a little different, but it still appears that that's actually the highest backyard. That septic system is actually the highest one in the whole surrounding area, and not 1180 or 1184. According to all that, and actually, really, the highest one is 1203 Ferry Street, which is further down the road at the lower end, which was completely built on fill, which I believe Mr. Carberry was on the commission for and voted on that one as well. So, you know, he's been a part of, you know, issuing the permits for some of these houses that were completely built on fill there, elevated, and that's really, those are the properties with the retaining walls and the fill. Those are the ones where they create obstructions that are really redirecting the flow of water, not necessarily just the ones that have open type foundations and are naturally evenly letting everything go.
well, I was on the commission for the permitting of that too.
Yep.
And part of that is because the septic systems, the ones that don't require a tight tank,
Right.
they have to be elevated. So granted, there was some additional elevation besides that, but the problem is the people that have been permitted to do what they do, and they're within their legal, if they've met their legal requirements, we can't go back and make them change. But this property was bought with an existing set of conditions, and one of the conditions were that back 25 feet. In his narrative, he said he wasn't going to touch it. And now that's been filled with gravel and stone, and so that's one of the reasons I think we need an amended order of conditions. And I don't think the proposed plan we've seen right now is going to meet our requirements. That's all I have.
You have anything, Mike? Want to say anything, or?
I believe that that the planting plan and the fill in the backyard would be a significant change. There are some plantings, a coir log, and some fill proposed with this plan presented, and that would likely require an amended order of conditions.
Yeah, because he's solidly into the 25.
The original plan had that back area to not be touched, the tight tank to be backfilled with sand, and even a tree to remain there. So
Andrew, what's your thoughts on the suggestion they do a flow path analysis for the well?
I mean, that is something that they're introducing, but I believe that's stuff that they're introducing for more the MOWA zone, and a V zone and coastal high hazard zone, within, the seaward of the limit of moderate wave action, which is obviously over on Hummerock. It's not on this side of the South River over in that area. I mean, I understand the flow, and it's when the tide is going out and there's a flood and it's going down the South River is really when that's when you get that velocity, especially when it's coming from that part of the river and across those particular properties in that direction. And so that's I understand how that is occurring, and I just do think that I don't like this plan. I don't think it addresses it properly. But I do think that there is a way with Phil to address it in such a way that it will kind of even it out for all the properties in that area.
Mrs. Carberry?
I did want to add, it's not even just when there's a storm or high tide. We had rainfall last week. I can't tell you what it looked like after just a rainstorm. So it isn't just, it's a couple of problems.
Right, it's
Causes, I guess, is
a lot of things coming
the
together, and
rain was.
Yeah.
My neighbor had water in the backyard. The lot the new house is being put on was completely.
And it's not isolated. It's happening all across this town. I mean, we've got the houses on Beach Street that we just elevated over there. As soon as they were up on the new foundation, the street flooded, and it was all the way up into the smart vents that they had just installed. So. And they had never had water that high until this year. And there wasn't even a storm. It just was a kind of, we got a wind offshore at a really high tide, so.
yeah.
That was 2 weeks ago, that 12-foot tide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was.
Yeah, we're behind the 8 ball on this whole thing.
Frank, one last comment. What I'm trying to square my head around is if the top of the tank is 7.3, not including any substrate and any kind of permeable pavers that go on top of that tank, so cars can drive up there under the house like a sewer garage. And the lowest point close to structure off Robert Crawford's elevation certificate for 1185 is 5.5. How is that going to even the flow up? What it's going to do is the velocity of the water coming from the river during a astronomical high tide and a coinciding storm, the water is going to be channeled because of the constriction of the increased elevation at 1187. So how is that going to even out the flow? That just makes no sense to me. How do you reconcile that when one elevation, base elevation is 5.5 and the top of the tank is 7.3?
I don't know.
Well,
When he
I'm-
references 5.5, that's the way back corner of the house and
The lowest
the next door
elevation.
neighbor's house. They're the top left corner of their house, where they've encroached into the wetlands with their, with their yard. So it's kind of a poor metric to be using, for there, because it's actually not 5.5 because they've filled it since then.
Yeah, when I stand there and look at it, that property looks higher.
Right, and
Then-
5.5, it was on the elevation certificate, that was identified before they did all their patio and everything. That was to get their, their septic as built and their building, permit closed out. Really.
But I think the 5.5 is next to the piles, next to the structure. It's not in the back, not in the back lot. They did add planting beds and some pavers back there, permeable pavers, but that didn't go up by 2 feet. So if everybody's surmising about these things, why don't we request an analysis so we know? And so there's no debate. A third party does this work. I think the developer should take on the responsibility to get that done. And we should wait to see if it comes back and it corroborates what I'm saying or corroborates what Andrew's saying.
I'm not averse to asking for a flow path analysis, if it makes sense in this location. Andrew, you just said it's more germane, say out in Hummerock, or
Yeah,
But
floodway, yeah.
if it might answer some of these questions. Anybody else,
What is the depth of flooding in like the rainfall events?
As far as rainfall,
Yeah.
that's really hard to say. It's
We're talking feet? Like
when we're talking flooding in this area, really it's only as far as what I'm responsible for is mostly just the FEMA flood zone, the special flood hazard area, the type of coastal
Right.
Or inland flooding that you'd see there. Yeah.
Right.
So I mean the water, like rainfall exacerbates it.
Right. No, I'm saying the depth of flooding that you
So the
seen
depth,
out there.
the flooding there, I believe, is at 8-10. Is that correct? In that area.
I believe so. I'm not completely sure. Off the top of my
So
head.
it's an AE10 there. So that's what FEMA is saying they're expected. That's the height and 1% chance basically of having that flood. But in Massachusetts, we add another foot to that level.
No,
for
I
all of,
know the regulation. I'm just in your observations out here.
Yeah.
What is the depth of flooding for like storm events you've seen? And does it get up to 10 elevation in a rainfall event?
I mean, it may have back in 19. It's never gotten up to 10 since I've ever been here. No, I mean that would be like 3 or 4 feet of
right. That's what I'm saying.
across the street now.
Okay.
but, as Mrs. Carberry pointed out, when you have an astronomical high tide and a big rain, and this seems to be happening with much greater frequency than was anticipated.
One other question for Andrew. I know this is Board of Health, but the depth of the tight tanks, that's engineered to keep them in the ground, to keep them from floating out of the ground with the groundwater, right?
Partially, yeah. I mean, they also have to be designed specifically to resist flotation. So they are built with extra concrete usually, or there's an extra little pad or something that's attached to them that they put on there to hold it down.
So the fact that the tight tank at 11.5 is slightly deeper than the one at 11.87, that's not unusual.
As far as the depth of the tank, that's more of a that really is more of a question for Gary Russell and Board of Health. As to why they wanted it there. It could just be the way
Just for the other
they
commissioners.
turned it
because of, sorry, Andrew.
Yeah, I'm sorry, no, go ahead.
Just because of the Title V requirements, we have to allow them to have a septic system in this existing house. So, we usually don't, it is what it is, and we have to work around it. It seems like there's ample room to allow flow on either side of that, even with that tight tank at that level. But I think we're at the point we need an amended order of conditions, and
We definitely need an amended order of conditions. Do we want to request a flow path analysis?
I think it makes sense.
I do too.
It's kind of going to be a back and forth until
Mm-hmm.
that's
We
done.
have
and-
some
yeah.
more evidence here.
it's new to me. Is that a prohibitively expensive?
I
I
don't,
don't know.
I don't know.
Is Rachel in?
Ms. Watt,
Um,
can you, shed
Alright.
any light on that?
So I admit it's hard for me to speak from the hip, like I don't wanna shoot from the hip too much on what costs would be for that. We have, in my practice, we do a lot of permitting before DEP with NEPA, all of that, and we've done we've had a couple cases before with that CZM has submitted comments on and had to do flow path analysis for that, but they were for single family homes. It was not for a large development, it was for single family homes, so I don't expect it to be something prohibitive. But I truly don't know off the top of my head. I'm happy to look into it and check in with what our records say and get back to you by end of day tomorrow if that's helpful.
So would CZM chime in on this? On a
I
site?
Sorry, is that a question for me or for someone?
I'm just, throwing it out there. I mean, if we called, Rebecca Haney, would they have something?
Rebecca Haney has done this.
Okay,
We've communicated with her about the projects we've done
okay.
previously for flow paths, so she has experience with them.
So maybe we should reach out to
Get some guidance.
and get some guidance. So, all right, I think we're in agreement that regardless, the orders of conditions need to be amended. And I think we will tomorrow contact CZM and see whether they can give us a flow path analysis, or, is it practical in this situation, is it appropriate? And when we speak with them, we will have a better idea of what direction to go in.
Yeah, because my only other thought on that is residences or single-family homes are exempt from stormwater management.
Stormwater management,
So-
right,
That's, I'm not sure if that comes under that.
right,
The fact that Attorney Watsky said that she has seen it with single-family
single-family homes. Okay, so, we're going to reach out to CZM, and regardless of where that goes, we're going to need an amended order of conditions. So. Take it from there?
Yeah, he's not here, right?
Pardon me?
Mr. Antonik is not here, correct?
No, he's not here, so, we'll need to communicate with him. We'll talk to CZM first, and then, depending on what we learn from them, we will tell him he needs an amended orders of conditions and possibly the flow path analysis also.
Is the project ceased?
Mrs. Carberry?
Is the project on hold? I mean, are they gonna continue to keep working over there until?
The last thing we told them was they could install the tank and drive the piles, which they have done. But I do not believe they
They could also backfill the old cesspool on the property.
backfilled the
Lots of
cesspool.
And lots of lumber got delivered today.
I saw the lumber. Yeah, I was there. So they're not supposed to be proceeding
Okay,
at this stage
just wondering. Thank you.
With fill
Very
or with
much.
construction?
with construction.
Oh, okay. So lumber's there, they might be doing
Yeah.
construction.
Just because I know I'll get a question about that. because they can't go any further before I get an elevation certificate showing that the first floor that they're put on is above anyway. So I have a mechanism to kind of to stop them.
Just, okay,
But I'm gonna get that question if I try to say you can't build it.
can't build,
He's gonna say why, because it has absolutely building the structure on.
right, on the
Right,
piles
has
that we
nothing-
let him drive.
Right.
So I'm I'm gonna get that one.
Okay,
I'm not sure if that's within our.
within our, can we do that?
I mean, he won't be able to go any higher than that first floor deck until he gives me an
elevation
under construction
certificate.
elevation certificate. So
And that will take all this into consideration, right?
it might stall, for another week or so or whatever before he starts building up. But I mean, as far as that, the structure's approved. Really, what we're talking about is how
Right.
the site's going to be
The
graded.
grading,
Yeah, I think Paul's scope is just to build the deck now, the platform on top of the piles, and I think he's done at that point.
okay,
But I don't know that for sure, but that's typically what Paul does when he does a raise. He does a raise, he puts piles in, goes really quick.
Yeah.
Really efficiently, does a really good job, and then he constructs the deck. So that the decking structure to support the rest of the house.
okay, well, we're gonna speak to CZM. He's gotta get an elevation certificate, and yeah, we need to change the orders, or he needs to, come in here and account for what's going on there.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you, Commission. Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
I hope we get a good resolution. We'll do
I
our best.
appreciate your time.
All right, thank you all.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Yeah, bye.
Good night. Okay, next we have 170 Caroline Circle, a hazard tree, and is this Mr. Orant?
It is.
Okay,
This request is to cut a tree that is within the wetland setback. That map there was the site plan. I was before this committee in 2018 to get permission to build a deck. The tree, the catalyst for this is really twofold. The first is that the insurance company has canceled our policy twice. We're along the North River there. And there's a stipulation in my policy, and I think everyone along the water, that in the event of a named storm, my deductible, based on the amount of insurance, goes to $30,000. So I had actually written to the Conservation Commission back in 2020 about this tree. It's, as you can see, I don't think there's an arborist or a forester in the world who wouldn't say cut this down. But I kind of like the tree. It's colorful in the fall, but this is a bit of a risk, and I'm not in the mood for shelling $30,000 out for a tree. The deck costs $45,000, so if the tree lands on, there's actually a tree that's actually closer to it, but it's healthy. This is hollow. You've looked at, these guys took the pictures, those are my pictures, but it's got, a very large cavity inside it. Virtually every major branch of the tree is broken off in the 10 years at one point in time I've been there. And it just, I think it needs to go, and that's the genesis of this request.
you don't wanna end up with a $100,000 debt?
You don't want me to go off of the insurance industry, but, one of the, as you know, a major cause for damage in storms is trees hitting houses, right? So I'm just trying to mitigate that in advance.
And I think you and Liz went out and looked at the site.
Yes,
and-
we observed the tree. The tree is clearly hazardous, and it's within. It might be within a foot or two of the deck, so it's in close proximity to the home. I did notice there were a few trees in that area that might be also sickly, and I'm not sure if they'll have to cut those down to access this tree. I'm not sure if you had that conversation.
Well, I found a guy who's gonna climb the tree and cut it that way.
Okay.
Because otherwise there'd be logistics with a crane, and I'm just not sure it's practical.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So when I came to you, I was kind of hoping this would happen quickly, but so we're gonna get a guy to climb it. He's gonna drop it, and I'm gonna try and be out of town that day.
Climb that hollow
I
tree.
know.
I was gonna say, you got somebody to
Talk
climb
about
that?
insurance.
Well, yeah, I managed a 100-acre woodlot for 20 years. You could probably get a hinge on this tree,
Yeah.
but I don't have the intestinal fortitude to do it. And
Yeah.
uh, I talked to a bunch of guys. None of them really feel great about it. But at any rate, I honestly think it needs to come down.
Mhm.
I'm not doing this for any other reason other than the cost mitigation.
I don't have any problem with this. I mean, that's unsafe and it's a hazard and.
Okay, so I can go ahead.
We'll just take a vote. I move that we agree to the removal of this tree. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, I hope we don't read about your arborist in the paper.
Yeah. Like I
Put
said,
it on the record that did the best job as a homeowner building his deck.
Okay.
John knows I'm an engineer. Yeah.
And he came in to ask about a tree. Thank you.
Yeah.
We appreciate people like you.
Thank you all.
See you, Steve.
Steve.
Okay, California Street, a land donation. Is there someone here for this? We have a resident who would like to donate land. And how big is this parcel, Mike?
It is 0.091
0.09
acres.
On California Street. Originally acquired for nitrogen loading for a septic system. I mean, if he wants to give it to us, and I guess town council would have to look at this. What do you
Why does
think?
he wanna give it away? Why does he wanna, is there a reason?
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. Is this adjacent to his property, or is this just a standalone?
He lives at 25 California Street, so it's in the same neighborhood. It's in close proximity to his home. The lot is a very small lot, likely undevelopable. Thus, you would have to pay taxes on an undevelopable lot. That's likely a reason why he would give it to the Conservation Commission.
I have two thoughts. One is to add to the inventory of open space is good. But the other thing is we seem to constantly have requests about cutting trees on conservation property.
Mhm.
Is this a way to we're not gonna have to do any work on that in the near future, are we?
How did it look, Mike, with respect
Are there any
to?
big trees that are gonna be a problem or anything?
I would have to scout out the parcel and take some measurements and ensure that there are no large hazard trees on the parcel. From satellite imagery, I can pull some up now. It didn't appear that there were any buildings in close proximity to that lot. Let me pull that up quickly for you.
And where was his home in relation to this?
It's in the same neighborhood. It's like a series of side streets. He lives at the property owner lives at 25 California Street, and this is I can pull it up on the GIS system, but it's in the same neck of the woods.
I don't know why he would come back and ask for trees to get cut down if it's not.
Well, he wouldn't, but it's not next to his house and it's
Or
next to somebody
somebody-
else's, and they say,
Right,
hey, we have a hazard tree and it's on Concom land, and
but if
maybe-
it's not near any other
right, then
residences or
and we-
buildings or
yeah.
maybe.
It is very close to a to building on 327 Ferry Street. I can share that.
I think,
Some more
Well,
information.
I don't wanna make a mountain out of a molehill.
no, I don't either, but why don't we table this until we just have a closer look?
The other thing is, I'm not familiar with acquiring open space for nitrogen.
Likely.
For nitrogen
And
loading.
if you do it, you know, are you allowed to give it up afterwards?
No, you're not.
I was gonna ask that. Is it under a restriction through nitrogen loading? Like, what was the obviously?
I would
one
have to do
point
some
they-
more research into that.
Yeah. At one point, they thought they needed the land. For
That may make there
You
may
need to
be.
check with the Board of Health.
Yes, we'll check the Board of Health and inquire from them.
I don't believe that necessarily prevents him from. Not
Donating
owning
it, yeah.
You don't have to own the lot. It just has to be under a restriction or an easement. Or
Yeah, I think we have to dig into this.
It might be fine. but
It
it's
might be
just-
absolutely fine, but
Okay.
worth looking into.
Yeah. let's make sure. Okay. So we're gonna table this for the next meeting. Okay, 807 Union Street. Mr. Zimmer. Go ahead.
Sure. Good evening, John Zimmer, South River Environmental. With me tonight is Ms. Edie Knight, who is one of the owners of 807 Union Street. They purchased the property about 6 months ago and have been in the process of moving in and getting acclimated to the property. It's a 27-acre parcel, basically an estate lot with a long driveway from Union Street back into a single-family residence. There's actually a conservation restriction on the property as well. The driveway over time has fallen into disrepair. The Knights contacted Mike and Liz to come out and take a look, and they said, well, there's a wetland here, so get in touch with somebody to kind of figure out what to do. So they contacted me. I went out to the property, took a look at it. I delineated the wetlands. On the Mass GIS, it shows wetland only on one side of the driveway. It actually crosses, the driveway crosses right through. It's a BVW. After I delineated, I kind of took a look at it, and it's basically almost like a shallow bowl. So up near the residence, the driveway slopes down. Coming in from Union Street, the driveway slopes down to a low point right in the BVW. Right now, it's just basically at grade. There's no berms or anything to control stormwater. It just runs right off into the BVW. There is a culvert there you can see. Kind of sort of functions to keep flow going through, but I think in large storm events it does overtop and cross the driveway, which creates a safety hazard. So what the Knights are looking to do is basically replace the driveway in kind. Right now it's 14 feet paved. They're looking to, along the majority of it, keep it at that 14-foot width. We did talk with McDonough Paving because, looking at it, there's definitely some room for improvement there for stormwater purposes and safety purposes. So I said, okay, can you guys look at it and see if you can modify the pitch of the driveway so that it basically goes past the wetland and discharges the stormwater in an upland area, still within the buffer zone, but outside of the wetland. So what they came up with was raising the elevation through that area about 12 to 18 inches, replacing the culvert, directing stormwater further down back towards Union Street and discharging it into an upland. We'd also decrease the width of the driveway to 12 feet, which would allow us to put in berms along either side to basically channel that stormwater that's hitting the driveway and move it past the wetland to a discharge point. And then replace the existing culvert to have better flow between both sides of the BVW. So we wouldn't be increasing the width of the driveway at all, so we felt that it met the performance standards for an exception under the bylaw, which allows for, the commission's discretion, of course, the replacement in kind of a driveway without a significant widening or alteration of the function as it is right now.
Thank you.
One other thing is that they, when, whoever they select to do the paving work, they would have erosion controls installed along both sides to make sure that the limits of work are clearly demarcated and prevent any of the material from, going outside of the limits of the driveway.
So how is the 12 to 18 foot raising of that section going to be accomplished? Not 12 to 18 inches.
Yeah.
Right, so that they would bring in some measure of fill material, base material over it. We'd be decreasing the width, so that would allow basically a 1 foot shoulder on either side, so it would allow them to kind of ramp it back down. So it would be stay within that existing 14-foot footprint.
Okay, so, and you will either replace the culvert in kind or something slightly larger?
It will absolutely be replaced, and sized appropriately. I think what's there now is maybe a 10 or a 12 inch, but I think it's partially crushed by years of use of the driveway. So, I recommended a corrugated plastic pipe or something that's going to be a little bit stronger, so that over time it doesn't break down like the one that's there now does.
Thank you. I don't see how this qualifies for an exemption. It's, to me, this is not an in-kind replacement. Yes, you're replacing a driveway, but you're in a BVW, you're gonna be bringing in fill, and you're gonna be replacing a culvert. I don't think that meets the criteria for an exemption. But if someone else has a different idea, an exemption you're asking for an exception, not an exemption, correct?
An exception, so that the language is maintaining, repairing, or replacing, but not substantially changing or enlarging an existing and lawfully located structure or facility and or for de minimis activities. That in the judgment of the commission will have minimal, if any, adverse impacts on the resource area. So I would submit that the proposed work is going to have a net benefit on the resource area over existing conditions. If they proposed an exact in-kind replacement, it would still be a grade, there would be no berms, there would be no improvement to the stormwater facilities. So you'd basically, have similar conditions to what's happening there today.
I don't disagree that it would be a betterment at the end, but the work itself seems to be impactful to the resource area. I'm happy to hear otherwise, but that's my feeling.
So the driveway that's in the BVW is kind of at the lowest point there, right, as of
Yes.
now, and the fill that's gonna be brought in is to make it even all the way across, just simply, I guess, right?
Well, it's actually not just even, but actually pitched a little bit
Pitch a
so
little
that the
bit so that, and
stormwater.
with the berms and so that the flow is
Yeah, we
directed
want
out.
to direct the stormwater past the BVW, where right now it's flowing down from both sides and basically going into the BVW at the culvert location.
And you're saying to make that happen is going to,
It's going to require, you're gonna fill to change the level and you're gonna bring in gravel to support
Mhm.
the berms, or you're bringing fill into a wetland.
Right, but I would submit that there's already fill in the wetland. The location where that material is going is already impacted, it's already filled, so you're not increasing the fill, it's working within the existing footprint of what's already been impacted. There's no function to that wetland right in that area, it's basically just increasing, if the table is through the wetland, it would be just increasing the height of the table.
Was there ever any permit for anything on this property before?
I don't know offhand.
I have a plan from 1994. I don't know what the resolution of that was, but it Interestingly, yeah, this one shows wetlands on both sides of that portion of the drive. I don't know what was done at that time with that plan,
Is that
but
signed by conservation or anything, or?
If I may, Chair Hannafin, there was a previous notice of intent, I believe, on this property. It was a few decades old at this point. I'm not sure off the top of my head the permit number or what exactly that permit was issued for, but that was one of the resources that we looked at to investigate if that wetland was still there and in fact running through
looks like it
the
was
road.
from conservation.
Yeah.
And this predates the house.
I think the house was built in '94.
Yeah, so that was, this is
So that was
probably,
done, that was the
yeah,
driveway.
because the
too.
plan I have shows the driveway, but no house yet,
It must have been the original permit for the driveway.
permitting for the driveway.
Well, I think I agree, it's not exactly de minimis, but would this be an RDA?
Well, I think we had originally talked about an abbreviated notice of intent, Mike. Did you discuss that with the Knights?
That was mentioned at first a few months ago with the suggestion as well of Phil Finn, our consultant.
But yeah, could it be an RDA?
It is an existing structure.
It is.
And the fact that John's been in there, we have, you know, the wetlands been looked at.
Right.
But, you know, we don't need a engineered drawing of the whole
True.
wetland and everything, so that the RDA
would-
would allow that.
That makes sense, yeah.
I mean, would the commission be amenable to an exception with a written exception with conditions on it? I mean, it's basically
Can we condition an exception?
I don't see why not. I mean,
Man,
it-
a negative determination on an RDA is virtually the same thing as
Right.
Without the actual trigger of the permit.
Right.
It's virtually what they're here.
I haven't seen.
essentially, it's just, I mean, it's an extra 4 to 6 weeks
Mhm.
to get through an RDA process for what will essentially be the same thing.
If we can condition, if we can allow an exception with conditions, I just want, some kind of conditions on this.
Typically, when we issue an RDA that has conditions on it, if it's, I believe a +3 indicates that it's in a resource area, but with conditions there would be no impact to the resource area, and a 2 is that it's in the buffer zone and the work would not impact or alter the resource area. On those ones, typically we put conditions on the cover letter as best management practices, sort of guidance steering the applicant in the right direction while it's not necessarily a condition on the RDA itself.
Right, but this is a little different because this is an exception under the bylaw.
Under the bylaw.
Yes.
So I mean, you could write it however you want,
Right.
with conditions in
With
there,
conditions.
reconstruction, similar. I'm just
Yeah, no,
I'm not averse to doing an RDA. I'm just trying to think through. Is this really going to be a different mechanism?
It'll just get to the
it'll
same
get to the
point
same place.
Right.
quicker this way.
Okay.
How far are you chasing grade back towards Union Street? You said raising like 12 to 18 inches and then
Right back towards Union Street. After you get through the wetland, it's less than 50 feet, I would say.
I would be amenable to granting this as an exception by letter with conditions. Do you have a problem with that
No, I mean, it's virtually the same as the IDA.
as an RDA?
Typically, conditions for this type of project would be ensure best management practices are followed, obtain all pertinent permits, and seek guidance from the conservation administrator or agent for work beyond the approved work activities.
Yeah, if you wanted to build in, kind of some of your standard pre-construction conditions, like, no
Mhm.
work until the erosion controls are in, coordinate with Mike, happy to do that as well.
Right, pre-construction visit and
An erosion control special
Erosion
condition
control, which
could
she's
be
already said
beneficial
they're
here
gonna
as well.
do. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna have us vote on this. I move that we vote to consider 807 Union Street driveway replacement under our bylaw as an exception, which we will attach conditions to. So we will do that by letter. And we should be good to go. So may I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great.
Okay,
Thanks very much.
thank you.
Appreciate you talking through that with us.
Okay, now we have the Cove Street residents. Are you here for this? Okay, if you would identify yourself and give us your address to start.
Bob Arsenal, 50 Cove Street.
Mira Moscato, 56 Cove.
Okay, and if you would explain.
Okay, give you a little background. We've had 4 terrific southwest storms this year. And the first one being January 12th. And the roads, as you can see, the pictures there were on the beach. And we're having difficulty putting our stairs down on the beach. So I reached out to the town moderator to ask him for any assistance that the town possibly could provide. Town moderator came down with the town planner, looked at the beach, didn't indicate one way or the other. He said, I'm gonna have to refer to the Conservation Commission. I was in touch with Mike. Mike came down, and Bert, I wanna thank you very much for coming down. And that's the situation.
So you have been using the aluminum stairs
Yes.
to get over the revetment.
Yes,
And now these stones have migrated
yes.
and that's impacting your ability to
Get
get the
the
stairs down.
And the reason why I was reaching out to the town, because the town has assisted other area beachfronts of the town putting this down, stairs down in situations, similar situations like this here. And every year other parts of the town, beachfronts, they put the stairs down and take them up. So that's why we were reaching out. We were just, anything that we've had to do down there that has to do with the seawalls or et cetera, we've had to pay out of our own pocket. And
But these are your private stairs, these are not.
yes, we
controlled
pay
by
for
the
these
town.
stairs, yes, out of our pocket. But our neighbors do use the stairs, people who use, I've lived there for 13 years now. Other people that we know outside of the cove want to use the beach, they let them use the stairs and what have you. You know, to me, the beach is for everybody's enjoyment. So, when people ask us and what have you, sure, no problem. The only thing I ask them, that's my stairs right there. Oh, wait a minute, no, that's Mary's
Those are mine.
stairs. Is that they be respectful of the beach, pick up
Mhm.
anything that they take with them, take them home with them, what have you. So that's the reason why we reached out to the town to see if they could assist us and what have you. And they referred us to the Conservation Commission, that's why we're here tonight.
And where the stairs are pulled up on the revetment, is that
Yes,
where they
go over the
just
river.
go right back
Yes,
down
yes,
there?
yes.
So,
There's two sets right there.
okay.
Yeah, that's fine right there.
Mine's below.
And as I said, anything we homeowners along that beach there have done with the revetments or what have you, we've had to pay out of our own pocket, like other sections of the town. Where I sit in my front room there, living room, I can look across the way at Bay Ave and see the $350,000 worth of sand going down there. Prior to that, years prior to that, they put the revetment over there and what have you. Down Brant Rock Beach, they've done some work down there also, Oak Bluff and what have you. So we're just trying to, I hate to use the phrase, get a little bit of the action or what have you, maybe participate because we're like taxpayers like the other people too.
Well, yeah, leaving aside what's done in other areas, it's part of grant money and coastal zone, that's a big project that's beyond the scope of this discussion here. But it seems to me that if you simply, you don't even have to move that much of that significant amount of those rocks back to get your steps down, do you?
She does more so than I
This
do.
was very devastating this year. So this lower picture is 56 Cove, my property.
That's yours?
Yeah, and all those rocks migrated over. That was there's a lobster trap there. That was all, that wasn't there. That was sand.
That was sand.
When I brought those steps up last November, October. All those rocks have migrated over now. So in order to get those stairs down and have a leveling, I'm gonna have to move some of these rocks. And we want to do it correctly with the town. That's why we're here. And but this, I have no access right now. With this, Bob's the next one. It just keeps going. The next 5 houses.
It's just going right down.
Yeah, it's just mine's the worst. And then it just, as you can see, that all those stones came over.
So how many people have individual stairs that go down and are impacted by this? Both
All
you.
along there, probably a good half dozen people.
Go up to the top picture a little bit, Mike. You can see that that's about 4 or 5 houses all the way down. You can see some of those stairs up there. There's 5 aluminum stairs and 1 house has a wooden stair. A little further down.
And reason why I reached out to the town, I didn't know if they could possibly put a machine on the beach to move the
Right,
rocks
push 'em.
back so we could get our stairs down there. As I said, I fully understand the budget process, the planning process, and I'm fully aware of that. Maybe we can work something out for a long-term process, maybe not necessarily this year, but maybe next year, put it in the budget, maybe where we can get into the planning of the beaches with the rest of the beaches in the town. Because our philosophy is, the beach is for everybody. And we let the people use the stairs.
You wanna get Mike's comments?
Yes. You want to comment, Mike?
Yes, the cobble and rock material would just be rearranged essentially at the bottom of the stairs to facilitate the stair usage here. Any further beach nourishment, large deposits of material in the area would need a CZM review. Other ones, like around Bay Avenue, have received research extensively from the Woods Hole group before permitting, or as part of that permitting process. So that would be, as Mr. Olson said, a bit more of like a long-term approach to visit that piece of it. But just rearranging the material at the bottom of the revetment would not. That seems permissible. Yes.
Yeah, so I was at the site visit along with Mike and Liz, and these are both private revetments that were previously permitted, so they were allowed to have their stairs and everything.
Excuse me, I'm deaf. You crank up the hearing aid here.
I said that
Thank you.
they're private revetments that, you know, you finance and you built, or the previous owners did. They're legal, they're permitted, the stairs were there. I think, I agree with being able to rearrange the rocks and get your stairs down. As far as beyond that, I think you're gonna have to get involved in, you know, the whole beach nourishment thing. They just had a meeting down in Duxbury about that last night, I think. Um, you know, it's a long-term process,
Fully
and
understand.
until we find out what's going to happen with the jetties, I don't think you're really going to know what you have there.
I fully understand that the jetty is going to happen in 2027. Fully understand that. The original email to Mike Maresco was possibility that we could ride with the jetty project. And he said, well, that's federal funding. I fully understand that's the Army Corps of Engineers, if they have money that year to do the jetty. Because the Army Corps of Engineers, they budget 5 years out. And if there's any disasters in the United States, the Army Corps of Engineers, if they don't have enough money for that disaster, they dip into these budgets. So 2027 is really nothing solid and concrete there either. So we were just figuring maybe develop a project with the jetty, the town. We fully understand maybe the town could fund it. Because I mean, it's, as I said, it's a beachfront community. A lot of rentals down there bring the money into the town commerce and what have you, And we're just trying to share a little bit of what the other beaches are getting in the town. For the most part,
Yeah, that's really outside of our scope
no,
here
I
tonight.
fully understand.
When a plan gets put in place, then it'll come in front of us for
And I
permitting.
understand where you're coming from, and I do agree with you. We can probably make it through this year. What do you think?
Yeah, if we can, we'd appreciate the ability to reposition the rocks.
I don't have a problem with repositioning the rocks to get your steps
Okay.
to a solid
Yeah.
landing.
Yeah.
You would have to do that yourselves.
Correct.
We understand that.
Many years ago, when I had my first seawall before that got blown out in 2018, Jack Flagg lived a couple of houses up. He's an old town, he's since passed on. He put in our seawalls, and sometimes they would fall down. We had an agreement with Jay and Lois that we could put a machine on the beach to put the rock back up where it belongs, as long as we contacted the town. So this is a little historical data that's in the town that they did allow us to do it back then. Mary's new in her house and what have you, but the previous owner, she participated in that also. And also, I'm in the middle, also the one to my right. So, is that still possible?
To bring equipment onto the beach to move this?
I live alone, and I can't move these rocks. So I have to hire someone to, whether it's manual or equipment wise. And I mean, I don't know, Mike, if you could go back down to the picture of 56 Cove, but I mean, the picture doesn't even do it justice.
Doesn't do it justice at
It's
all.
a lobster trap for
Yeah, this was
rule of thumb.
a very tough storm year where you can just see, I think you know the Blackman Point there with the mobile homes. They also use our steps, I think you probably know. It just all moved over here. And, you know, some of those, the different sizes, as you can see, some of them don't do justice, but they're pretty good size. And so it's not just to go down and shift around some stones.
We're not supposed to get involved in ways and means to accomplish your work.
Thank
but
you.
The way you were describing having to build a ramp to get the machine onto the beach, I think it would be prohibitive for what you want to do. I mean, you just want to get.
Well, That's how the town used to bring work in the jetty down there. That's how they used to bring the equipment down there.
The Army Corps comes in that way, I mean, it's all.
But that's a large amount of work. I mean, this would be a half an hour with a backhoe. You know, it's
Well, also the possibility of when we had those revetments put in there, they went through the trailer park.
Yeah.
And the shovel or the backhoe just parted the rocks as he went down. Then when he finished the job, took the rocks back where they were originally.
And we spoke to the property owner there, and she knows we're here addressing that with you. And agreed to it.
She agreed to let you bring the
Yes,
equipment
yes.
through there
Yes,
to
yes.
get
This
there.
has been done for so many years.
Nancy called,
Yeah,
yes.
Nancy called. If we need to, and I think everybody knows it's a different day on the tides. Every day is a little bit different.
Yeah.
But I don't think what you're seeing here isn't gonna move with tides.
Well, not immediately, no.
No.
Um,
I don't think for this
Not
season.
next week either.
No.
Well, I mean, look
We
at
watch it every
Hammerock.
day.
Some years they have a beach, and some years they only have rock. And
I don't disagree, and
Yeah.
this year is, it's just to access it, is the question. I only lived around the corner, 10 houses over on Water Street at Bluefish Cove, and I moved here for that, but it didn't look like that.
right,
I mean, to add a little point of, it said fabulous place, Bluefish Cove. I mean, our neighbors, our community, everyone at the Blackman Point, there's 85 mobile homes there that use this whole beachfront area. It's a sin to see it, continue to look like this and not address it somehow. We understand the project in 2027, but at least for this year, and as we watch it and we work with you, we just want the ability to move some of this. And we'll do it right.
But again, I think for tonight, you just want to get permission to move the rocks
We do.
around and get your stairs down. I think we can allow that.
I don't have a problem with allowing that. I don't know how you're going to accomplish it, but to get clearance where your stairs come down in
Yes.
however many properties. I mean, if they take a backhoe out there,
I don't. Again, we're not supposed to figure out.
You can't
how to
figure
do
that
it.
out.
I truly don't think it's necessary, but I've been wrong plenty of times.
I agree with Brett. We leave it to the professionals.
We were just being transparent,
yeah,
You-
I appreciate that.
because we want
And
to be here in the future.
I think, we probably are in agreement that if you want to move rocks to get your stairs down, I don't have a problem. As far as I'm concerned, you can do that. But yeah, you'll have to figure out how.
Yes. We'd like that motion.
Well,
I second it.
I think does everybody agree they can move rocks to put their stairs down?
Yeah.
Anybody have a problem with that? So I'm gonna move to vote that we allow them to move whatever rock, cobble, influx is necessary to get the stairs stable on the bottom of the revetment. May I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Can I vote?
So have
Thank
at
you very
it.
much.
I-
Thank you for your time.
Good luck.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mike.
I wish there were good times.
Brett, also thank you.
Well, you never know.
I know it.
No, and as far as the rest of it, you'll have to get involved in the whole beach study and
We will.
beach nourishment.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I mean, that was my original intent. You took this from
Right.
always, yeah.
And then longer term, it's a different
Okay, thank you
thing.
very much. Thank you.
Okay. That concludes the business. We have two public hearings. One is continued. SE 422973A, Free Trounce Island. I move to continue to our next meeting, which is March 6th. May I have a second?
April.
April.
3rd.
Jeez, oh, am I? What month is it? April 3rd.
Okay, yeah.
Going fast.
Yeah, okay, I move to continue to April 3rd, 2024. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And now we have a new hearing, 83 Ocean Street, in compliance with the regulations of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and Code of the Town of Marshfield, Chapter 294, Wetlands Protection. A public hearing will be held by the Marshfield Conservation Commission on Wednesday, March 20th, 2024, to consider the notice of intent filed for 83 Ocean Street, and Mr. Servant is here to present.
Good
Go
evening.
ahead, Rick.
Rick Savant with Stenbeck and Taylor. As you see, this is a raise and rebuild project. This is a property what we call up on the high road up number 83 Ocean Street. It is in an AE 11 flood zone. I don't know if you had a chance to go up there and look, but there is a nice old cottage there which has kind of fallen in disrepair. Shows a beautiful old place at one time, but at this point it needs to be replaced with a new modern structure. Most importantly, a flood compliant structure, which is what we're proposing here. This new structure will be built on a concrete foundation. It's not in a barrier beach or in any other resource areas other than the flood zone. It's going to have adequate flood venting. It will be elevated in excess of the requirement of the AE 11 zone. The finished floor is proposed at elevation 16.1. There is an attached garage, as you can see, which will also have adequate flood venting. There's a wetland nearby, but we are over 100 feet from it that we had flagged, but not shown on the plan because we're outside the buffer zone. But I wanted to let you know that we take a look at that down at the end of the highway. So I've shown the building and impervious coverages there. Of course, we are having an increase in impervious coverage on the site. Small little cottage there. Building a home that will comply with zoning, but does have a 798 square foot increase in the area. So that's essentially what we're hoping to do is build a new home on this property and make it flood compliant and follow all the protocols required to obtain a permit for this structure.
Okay, before we go any further, can you confirm administrative requirements are complete?
Yes, administrative requirements have been met.
Okay. And what comments do you have?
There's no erosion control proposed on the plan. The wetlands are over 100 feet away, as Mr. Savant has mentioned. The resource area is landslide coast storm flowage with a floodplain of AE 11. DP number is SE 423078. And for special conditions, I would suggest the following: general conditions 1 through 18. Prior to construction, conditions 5 and 2, during construction, condition 11, and after construction, condition 1. And as there's no erosion control proposed, no erosion control condition. Additionally, 7 flood vents are proposed on the concrete foundation. It is not in Barrier Beach Coast Lagoon.
Thank you. This looks pretty straightforward to me. You're going to have a pervious drive.
Yes.
I went and I looked at the site, and a new house will be a betterment. Do any commissioners have questions or comments? Are there any questions or comments from the audience on Zoom?
Yes, this is Scott Dixon. Can you hear me?
We can, give us your address,
82 Ocean Street. I'm
okay?
directly across from the property that's being looked at here, and Kelly Devine, the owner, has been nice enough to share the plan with me, and I'm in total support of the project. I just wanted to share that.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I wonder if I could make a comment on the owner.
Sure, go ahead.
Grew up in Marshfield. We've owned this property since the early 1980s. Unfortunately, our mother passed away from Alzheimer's, and so this is the first opportunity that we've had to do something with the property. Where I want to really thank Andrew for all his help pulling this forward. We've talked to pretty much all the abutting neighbors and heard support for redevelopment. Just wanted to acknowledge that we're excited to move forward if possible. Thank you.
Thank you. I see no reason why you can't move forward. I move to, excuse me, I move to permit this with special conditions as you've already stated. So may I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay,
Excellent. Thank you very
good
much.
to go. Thank you.
Aye.
Looks like a good project.
This is gonna be a nice project.
Yes. Okay, that concludes our public hearings. Now we have a couple of requests for certificates of compliance. 1 Atlantic Ave. We are not getting a response from the lawyers, so I want to confirm that from a conservation perspective, they have met the conditions. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So I move to approve the COC for 1 Atlantic Avenue, SE 422199. If there are building issues, there are building issues, but they have met our conditions. So I move that we approve this COC. May I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 162 Bay Ave, SE 422923. I move that we continue this. I think we're getting close, but we're not there yet, so I want to continue this. May I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 675 Hurley Street, SE 422907. I move that we approve the COC. May I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
2890 Sullivan, Old Mount Skirgo. They are requesting a partial COC. The house construction is finished. The planting plan has not been done, and the conservation markers are inadequate. They want a partial COC because I believe they have a sale pending. Is there anyone out there to address this?
Yes.
I guess so.
Rick Savant with Stenbeck and Taylor. I've been working with Mr. Sullivan on this. There is a pending sale with the property, and that's exactly what we're hoping for. And I have informed him. He hadn't done a lot of work with conservation in the past and did his best, but he understands, they got the markers in, but we looked at them. They need to be updated or put in properly, actually. And and the plantings haven't been finished, but I have every intention of working with the new homeowners to complete that planting and do it properly. I did inspect the driveway and the home itself. I know it's mostly out of the buffer, but they were hoping to receive a partial to proceed with the sale. And the new homeowner is aware of the issues and has every intention of completing the work under the original order.
How imminent is this sale?
I think Mr. Sullivan is on there. I don't know any dates. I don't know that. Chris, are you on?
You know, typically, a partial COC would be if you have a subdivision and a house is finished.
Yes, so the sale is actually complete.
Okay.
We are, the homeowner has accepted the fact that because we couldn't do the plantings given the time of year, the new owners understand what's going on with the plantings and the fact that they are gonna take over that and work to complete that when the time comes that they'll be able to do the planting. So the sale is complete. There is a new owner, and we're just looking for the partial to. That's kind of like the last part of the sale.
So the sale's already taken place.
Yes, we closed on the property on Friday, last Friday.
Okay, the conservation markers clearly need to be
Put in
improved,
correctly.
made permanent, and made taller.
Yes.
I just am trying to think of, you know, what, once we do this partial, how do we hold the new owner accountable?
Well, we'll still have the order on file, right? I mean, the order will pass to the new owner.
To the new owner.
And it will restrict the partial just to the items that were complete. Home construction, the driveway. I don't know what mechanism that the board it's still going to be.
It's still going to be an open order on this property.
It'll just be the partial for what they have done and.
Okay.
And but yeah, new homeowner is going to have to take the responsibility to do this, complete this work, and with the monitoring, everything else that goes along with it.
Had the sale not gone through, ask the previous owner to post a bond, but since it's already been sold, I'm not sure if that's workable. You know, it's very unusual to have a partial unless it's.
So for the sale, there was a holdback for the sale to, money held back to complete the planting and, under the condition that they would take this over, there was money held back to complete this work.
Okay, so there is money in escrow for this work, or?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody object to approving a partial?
Well, have money in escrow.
Yeah, if the money's held back. Okay. In that case, I move that we approve a partial COC for SE 2890, 30 Old Mount Skirgo Road. Pending are the improved conservation markers and the planting plan. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Excellent.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Rick. And that.
Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our business. I move to close the Conservation Commission meeting of Wednesday, March 20th, 2024. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.